to the Village of Glenview State of the Village Address. We're so glad that you can be with us and that you are able to, thank you, Lynn, and now that you can probably hear me as well. I want to recognize the traditional co-hosts of the State of the Village, the Glenview Values Committee and the League of Women Voters, along with the Village of Glenview and the Glenview Chamber of Commerce. There are members from all of those organizations here and on our Zoom call. Normally they get to wave, but that's not going to happen in this new and different world. And while everything is different this year, we remain committed as a village, as a community, to our residents and our businesses and to those who serve us all. We have a special thank you that we want to share for those working to ensure our safety. Our healthcare workers, police and fire here in Glenview, and our business community for continuing to provide care and services so we can get through this time together. We invite everyone to pay attention to the Glenview Chamber website and look for our Facebook campaign where we're supporting our businesses in the community by liking all their Facebook postings or Instagram following. We are able to bring this program to you through our partnership with Wintrust. And now I would like to introduce Jeff Talicki, president of Northview Bank with Wintrust, and invite him to the podium to make a few remarks.
Thank you, Betsy. Both of these working? Either one? Well, this is certainly a different way of doing this, isn't it? This is actually the first time I think I've worn a tie since February. So I don't know if that's good or bad, but good morning to all of you here at Village Hall and to all of you out there in Zoom land. In addition to the Glenview Chamber of Commerce, I'd like to thank the League of Women Voters and the Glenview Village Project for putting on this terrific event and for allowing Wintrust Community Banks to return as a presenting sponsor. I think this is our 4th year here. But I think each year that we've participated in this event, I've made some comment about the truly monumental undertaking that's involved with running this machine known as the Village of Glenview. And the State of the Village Address, I think, gives us a chance to step back and take a little inventory and acknowledge the year's accomplishments, as well as the challenges that lie ahead. And in the mix somewhere, reflect on how truly great I think it is to live or work here in Glenview. But clearly this year has presented challenges like no other, and on so many levels. Like most everything else, the village has been impacted by the pandemic. Hard to imagine the challenges of all aspects of running the village, from administration, building, zoning, police, fire, staffing, a lot of the challenges that many business owners face, but perhaps you'll hear some comment from Jim Patterson in a bit on that. But whether you're a business owner that is simply trying to hang on, or a working household trying to balance work from home with e-learning, or a senior living in an assisted care facility who's unable to be with family, the challenges have been many and very hard. I've been fortunate enough to live and work in Glenview all my life, and what's been inspiring to me is how members of this great community have responded to the overwhelming pandemic. I've always enjoyed the words of the late author and motivational speaker Zig Ziglar. I don't know if you're familiar with him, but when he stressed the importance of responding to adversity as opposed to reacting to it. In short, one who reacts to a situation allows him or herself to be controlled by it, if you think of an allergic reaction, right? Whereas one who responds is calm, thoughtful, and in control. So when many of us were thrust into this pandemic, certain feelings naturally surface. Uncertainty, fear, exhaustion, despair, panic. But seeing this community respond makes other words come to mind, like resilience, survival, collaboration, strength, community. Many of you have participated in your own version of responding, and the examples are many. Just this week, I was rehashing with Craig Solomon, Craig's here, from Wesley Child Care, and Park District Director Mike McCarty on how their organizations collaborated in an effort known as Camp Rec in order to redeploy staff, leverage district facilities, and deliver programming for kids who are otherwise displaced due to the pandemic. This initiative has not only benefited the participating kids, but also stressed working parents who are simply trying to manage through. As noted recently, sometimes we find ourselves in partnerships we never would have expected. I know of another story where a small physician group insisted that at-risk members of their team stay home from work while the rest of the team tirelessly worked long hours to pick up the slack. There are also numerous stories of people ordering takeout food from their favorite local restaurant, simply giving them a chance to get through to daylight. Numerous examples, right? I'm proud to say that at Wintrust, our role seemed to be that of ensuring that much-needed funding relief found its way to panicked business owners through the Small Business Administration's Paycheck Protection Program. We each play a role. For the better part of 90 days, we had 1,000 people working long hours, essentially from their kitchen tables, as you can imagine, shepherding more than 11,000 applications through to funding. And to hear the sigh of relief from business owners to know that their funding was set aside and on the way was priceless. In many ways, I think that motivated people to work just a little bit harder, a little bit faster, and even a little bit later into the night. Although the path to daylight may be very long and bumpy and unpredictable going forward, to see people and groups in this community come together is truly inspiring. And it reminds me, once again, how really great Glenview is. So we're all here to listen to President Jim Patterson's remarks. Jim, I think I told you last year that I've known you 25 years. And of course, this would make it 26, right? But, you know, looking back, the last 12 months seem a lot more than just a year. So anyway, it's been a pleasure for sure, and really appreciate what you do for the village and the people who live here. So now a little bit about Jim. Jim is completing his second term as village president. He's previously served 2 terms as a village trustee from 2003 to 2011. From 2 terms as village trustee from 2003 to 2011, and was a member of the Glenview Plan Commission from 2000 to 2003. Mr. Patterson was co-chair of the 1998 Glenview Park District Farms and Fields Referendum Committee and was a volunteer for the Glenview Centennial Commission. He is also a member of the Glenview Park Foundation Board from 1999 to 2012. Jim graduated from the University of Tulsa with a degree in finance. A businessman in the North Shore area, he and his wife Sherry have lived in Glenview since 1993. They have 3 children and 1 granddaughter. With that, I give you Village President Jim Patterson. Is that yours?
Thank you, Jeff. Good morning. Jeff is always one of the most comfortable speakers I think I've seen. And I really liked his assessment of whether people, how they respond. So is it a response, or how do you manage things? And I would say, before I begin, I really want to compliment staff on how well things have been done. It really has been an unusual year, and I would tell you that in order to keep things moving in a very smooth and controlled way, as Mr. Teleke just said, I think staff has done a tremendous job, and I think that's important to recognize going in. I would also like to recognize some of the people in the audience. I see we have State Rep Jennifer Gong-Gershowitz, State Senator Laura Fine, State Representative Robin Gable, and then from Jan Schakowsky's office, Ann Limyoko, and then from Senator Dick Durbin's office, Carissa Suarez Del Real, and then from, I'd also like to recognize from the Northfield Township, Shiva Moshe Zenda. I think I said that right. Close. I've tried. I think I have to say it 10 times the right way to get it right. So I apologize. I'd also like to recognize Jill Brickman from Northfield Township, as well as from the Park District, Mike McCarty, and then from the library and District 34, those various board members that are participating and on Zoom. And last but not least, I'd like to, and probably most important, I'd like to recognize the rest of our individual board members. They are critical to what makes things happen as they work their way through any and all of the decisions that affect the entire community. So let's move forward here. The first thing we have is a little intro video, I hope. Trying to coordinate the technology sometimes works really smoothly, and sometimes we need a little bit of help.
Glenview has always been on the move. It was the home of Illinois' first and most famous naturalist, Robert Kennicott, whose collecting expeditions took him to the Yukon. For 58 years, the primary training facility for Navy pilots was the Glenview Naval Air Station. And for decades, it has been easy to get from here to there because of the proximity to local expressways, commuter trains, and O'Hare International Airport. Yet Glenview is a place to put down roots. We are a family-oriented community that is welcoming to all. We have walkable, friendly neighborhoods, beautiful natural areas like the Grove, Air Station Prairie, Gallery Park, and Wagner Farm, exceptional schools, and a thriving business community. Glenview was primarily a farming community of 325 when it was incorporated as a village in 1899. Development took off in the 1950s, spurred by the opening of the Edens Expressway, and hasn't stopped since. Today, 46,740 residents live within the village's 14 square miles. Half of the land is used for residential, with almost 18,000 housing units. A quarter is commercial, industrial, and retail, and a quarter is open space. Altogether, Glenview's property value equates to $2.5 billion. All the things we love about Glenview didn't happen by accident. Thoughtful planning helped build our community and helps manage change. Infrastructure is maintained and kept up to standards. Fiscally responsible practices keep service levels high. Overseeing local government is a 7-member village board through a council-manager form of government. The village president and 6 trustees, elected at large for 4-year terms, appoint members of various permanent advisory commissions. The village manager hired by the board leads 6 departments with a combined staff of almost 300 full and part-time employees. This team runs a cost-effective operation with a focus on results and great customer service, guided by an annual budget that addresses infrastructure needs and sets initiative and service priorities while minimizing the financial burden on Glenview taxpayers. About a third of Glenview's revenues come from sales taxes and almost a fifth from property taxes. Glenview receives about 6.5% of a property owner's total tax bill. Other revenues come from utility taxes, state income taxes, building permit fees, water and sewer charges, and federal and state grants. About 40% of village expenses go toward day-to-day operations like fire protection, police services, ambulance operations, snow removal, street maintenance, and building inspections. These core operating expenses are grouped together into the corporate fund. An annual capital improvement program covers road resurfacing and reconstruction, and stormwater and sanitary sewer upgrades. Another portion goes towards providing water and sewer service. The village's budget maintains Glenview's strong financial position because expenditures are controlled through disciplined spending and cost reduction. The budget is structurally balanced and spending is sustainable because ongoing expenditures support ongoing revenues, while one-time expenses are paid with one-time revenues. Continuing efforts to manage public dollars responsibly include working with other governments to share costs, entering into public-private partnerships to control personnel costs, and aggressively seeking funding for capital projects through regional, state, and federal grants. Through economic booms and more challenging times, the Village of Glenview has maintained its reputation as a great place to raise a family and do business. The best schools, parks, and natural resources, combined with solid infrastructure, careful planning, and sound fiscal policies, have helped ensure that Glenview continues to be a vibrant, growing community.
I always like that video. I think it's very complimentary to the community as a whole, and I also think it really explains some of the things that we do, some of the underlying things that I don't think necessarily get enough credit, especially when it comes to the fiscal or fiduciary obligation that we have. So let's start with 2020, a year of unanticipated events. Primarily, I think it was March 16th that we went into the COVID situation. So the thank you sign to first responders is an indication of some of the things that were done around town. You can see the bear there with his mask on. The reception out at, or simply the acknowledgement from the first responders there in the parking lot over at Glenbrook Hospital. The 4th of July, reverse parade, if you will, which is at the bottom in the middle. And then the voting, people being socially distanced here in the bottom right. So just some of the things that, you know, aren't your average annual events. So what really happened? Well, March 21, the Illinois stay-at-home order, closure of non-essential businesses. I think there's still debate of what was or is essential, and you know, when you look at the business community, everyone, and you look at schools, and you look at the challenges that so many parts of our community have had, whether it's moms trying to figure out what to do with the kids, whether it's the bus schedule, whether it's work, whether we're staying at home or going downtown, it's just hard all the way around. We went to, on May 5th, we went to phase 2, then on to phase 3, phase 4, and back to tier 1 mitigation. I don't think I need to labor this, but it gives you a sense of, that gives you a little bit of the ups and downs, and I think some people thought there was light at the end of the tunnel, and yet it seems to be dragging on a little longer than we expected. But really and truly, as Mr. Teleke said at the outset, our intention is not to react, but instead to respond, to try to make sure that we do things in the right way, and trying to stay as positive as possible. So Glenview Strong was a recognition of what is going on within the community. How do we keep our healthcare workers safe? How do we keep people, keep their attitudes good, and yet how do we keep them doing things that are supportive of each other and realistic? And bottom line, it really takes patience. You don't necessarily have any sense of what the other person's plight is. Some people are significantly challenged more than others. Some just go through and take it in stride, and some have problems, and some have lots of problems. And I encourage everybody to be sensitive to that, to simply have some empathy for what the rest of the world is going through. So we say thank you for caring. We try to get people to support our businesses, and one of the things going on with businesses is you have to say, how do we support them? Is it drive-through? Is it curbside? Is it, can you walk into them? Are you respectful of the workers that are there, be that healthcare worker or the Home Depot worker or whoever, the grocery store worker? They're all at one point or another potentially at risk, and so you have to say, are they at risk? Am I at risk? or is it simply something we're going to work our way through? But in any case, we all need to be aware. But we have a little video here, and I think this is also kind of a more positive, fun video. Well, they said technical difficulties before, so sometimes, okay.
Glenview Grinds avocado toast. It's delicious any time of day, and it goes great with a cup of our locally roasted, freshly brewed coffee.
Outstanding. What we have here is our Windy City quintessential Chicago Italian beef and giardiniera. It does not get much better than this. If you have not tried it, you must.
Mom, Dad, the pizza's here.
This pizza looks great and smells great, but there's a few pieces missing. But these are our Yard House Poke Nachos. They're piled high with freshly marinated tuna, and they go great with our house IPA.
Oh, wow. I cannot wait to dive into these tuna nachos. Look at them. They look fabulous. And I'm sure you're going to enjoy our barbecue wood rotisserie oven roasted baby back ribs. It's our specialty here at Johnny's. I hope you love them.
Oh, man, Pops. This has got to be Mary from Johnny's. I recognize these ribs. Oh!
And I recognize the girls from the works.
Yeah, let me get you a piece. So, we got some extra sauce here, because everybody loves the sauce. You like it, the sauce, huh? The sauce is good. We give you more sauce.
And how about the cheese fries?
Cheese fries too, Pops. Oh, yeah.
Where's the fork? No fork?
We need a fork, please. Okay.
Let's up with it.
Dos, Tora.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for the service.
There you go, guys. The works heroes.
Terrific. I think that's a very positive video. I think it's kind of fun. I think it's, I didn't know we had so many actors and actresses. Kathy's right here. Well done, great opening. So, you know, we have had some fun in the middle of some of this, and that's good, but it's still been challenging. So what did we do from a budget perspective? You know, at the outset, I don't know if you recall, when we first did our one of our original forecasts, projections, we thought we were going to be down somewhere between $7.6 and $13 million in revenue. And that was our early projection. Then we figured out more recently that some of our sales tax projections and some of our other things were healthier than we realized. And so now we are only down, instead of what we thought was going to be $7 million, we're only down 4.6. And I would tell you our more recent projection, this is actually about a month old, and I would tell you that more recently we're even more optimistic. So that's the revenue side as a function of some of the things that we have going on from whether it's restaurants or stores and things like that, and sales tax. But our property taxes have been down, and there's this other thing called LGDF, and income taxes we project those to be challenged as well. So you have to look at the whole equation to say, where's our revenue going to be? On the other side, from an expense perspective, we took, staff looked at this and with board approval and basically said, let's not backfill any of the FTEs. If we have an open position, let's not backfill them till we have a better sense of what's going on. We eliminated only non-essential training. So, you know, first responders and things that were critical, we kept those in place. We've also reduced overtime. which is kind of a balance. You have to say, are we keeping more people on shift or off shift based on the COVID challenges? But how you staff in a different way, it moves things around. And so that's a little bit of a balancing act. Once again, I have to compliment staff on how they went about organizing that and trying to put that in perspective. And then, as always, continuing to improve an operational process of how things are going. Net, we're more optimistic now that we'll finish the year more close. I don't know that we'll, if we can get to break even, that would be awesome. Then there was the census. Interesting year. You get to do all these things at once, right? Our self-response from our community for 2020 was better than 2010. Is that because more people were at home? Is that because it could be a lot of things? It could have been our outreach with banners. It could have been social media. It could be a lot of things. But there were an awful lot of TV ads from various jurisdictions that said, make sure you participate in the census. And, you know, what does that mean to us? Well, if you think about it, you know, people that are paying income tax, we pay state income tax at 4.95%, and then there's 7% on corporations, and then you have MFT, motor fuel tax. But bottom line, we have basically 47,000 people, and LGDF is worth about $125 per cap per year. And so when you look at it like that, $125 a person, maybe it's $128, I think, is probably more accurate. And yes, a dollar matters. There's $47,000, right? So it makes a big difference. And our state reps and state senators are always trying to keep that in balance as to how does that work. But those are important dollars. So what did we do for major capital projects in 2020? Some of this is a little bit fundamental, but keep in mind, the village is about core services. One of the primary things we do are capital projects. And so 3.37 miles of road reconstruction. In other words, we dug them up, we probably replaced the utilities underneath, and then we replaced the road. Curb, gutter, and could be water, could be sewer, could be curb, gutter, water, sewer, and storm sewer. I knew there was another one. You put all that together, and we try to do it so that when we tear up a road in one part of town, we don't have to go back and tear it up again. And then resurfacing, another 5 miles of that. So there's $16 million that you can see right up front. Some of them are bigger and some of them are smaller depending on how big the project is. But these were village funded. And then there were special projects. So North Glen Oak Acres. So that project to replace, actually not replace, but to add storm sewers, which were not there, was $1.5 million. And of that $1.5 million was $1 million grant. So that was trying to incorporate and take advantage of various things that the village staff keeps looking as they churn through opportunities, and we work with legislators to try to get their assistance and advice on what funds might be available. So we appreciate that. The Techney Basin rehabilitation, there's a trail that works all the way around it, and not only are we replacing that, but we're also adding some things to it, some lights and little things in certain places. I think a call box. And so that project's $450,000, of which almost half, $200,000, is a grant. So timing is such and things make sense. And keep in mind, this is actually, even though it may not be a great year because of COVID, in a way it is a great year for projects because there's less traffic. And so, except for foot traffic, people are out walking or riding bikes, but for the most part, the roads have been easier to work on and been more efficient. Downtown train station, Also, some work done but reimbursed by Metra. Regional projects, keep in mind this isn't us. This is things that affected us, but this is, in the first one, IDOT. So a 2-year project that's coming to an end right now, that was $8.6 million, just widening that bridge. And then if you work your way from Landwehr going west on Lake Avenue, 2.5 miles of road rehabilitation. That's been where they grind it off and resurface it. They've also been replacing and doing some of the concrete work as they break it and put it back. And then Eden Spur, just granted, traffic's important, but making things work is critical. So, what are two of the most, the biggest projects, but that were approved in 2020? One was 1850 Glenview Road, or the former Best Hardware site, was approved for 68 apartments. That's kind of on hold at the moment, and also the Hart Estate, which was over at the corner of Willow and Fingston. That one got started. There was a little bit of a challenge. The developer cut down a few too many trees, which I'm sure you read about, and in the meantime, that's also been put on hold. But probably one of the most exciting things that we have going on right now is this thing that we call Glenview Connect. So Glenview Connect is the ability for anybody who wants to go online can put some ideas in or thoughts in. It's what we believe to be the most open and receptive method of getting information in. We're looking for input for both our economic development strategic plan that has 5 different study areas, different parts of town, as well as our downtown revitalization plan update. So we're looking at the community as a whole, and we are spending a couple of dollars here in order to figure out what makes sense. As you watch the town move forward and you see different generations come and go, you see more new ideas come to town, and this says, what do we want this town to look like? So the village board has an overarching obligation as city fathers to try to incorporate things that say, what do we want this to be? What should the planning be? Should it be more single family? Should it be more residential? Should it be more commercial, more industrial, more multifamily? What should it be? More senior housing, more affordable housing, more of any one of those subjects. You have to say, how does that fit? And there's an opportunity for people to put a voice in here. Downtown revitalization is about, do we want more or less density? Do we want different buildings? Do we want shorter buildings or taller buildings? Do we want, where do we want them located? Do we want to keep what we have? And also the reality of the fact that if someone owns a building, they have a right to do something with that. And they may simply own it for a long time and not make any changes. And if they do own buildings for a long time and they don't make any changes, what does the community want to do? If they like a block or they like a way something's developed, how do they encourage more? Should we be spending more money or less money or spending it differently? And all of those ideas are on the table for consideration. You look at the 5 study areas, where are they? What parts of town are they? There's the downtown, right? There's the Glen, there's Waukegan Road, there's Willow Road, there's Milwaukee Avenue. Those 5 study areas are articulated, and we encourage you to go to Glenview Connect and engage. Give us some input and stay engaged as long as you can, hopefully for another month or 2, while we try to get it figured out and we look for as much input as we can get. Achieving balance of the realities of current and future market conditions and what those community aspirations are. This is a big deal. And so our next board workshop is on November 18th. It's a Zoom. You can Zoom in. The board Zooms in, and staff Zooms in. We encourage you to do the same. Put your questions in there. There's a chat. They may or may not address some of them in the course of the evening, but at the same time, the plan is to address all the questions over time in a way that says, this is we have to address things in a way that is longer term in nature. And so we try to put things up there, and we may not be able to answer them that evening. So there's also a self-guided tour. There's a board workshop. There are some open houses. And then there's surveys. The last one actually had some surveys right in the course of the conversation. What appeals to you? And, they gave you multiple choice. You just had to click one in, and then you got to see a quick response, right? Fairly quick, like 30 seconds later. Okay, here's what the majority of you said. And by the way, some of you had interest in these other topics. It's kind of cool. So I encourage you to get involved. What else are we doing as far as implementing change? So we did a fire department operational study with data-driven analysis to say, how do we do anything more efficient than we're doing today? If you think about it, the fire service has responded. It's very different now than it was 30 years ago. We have more calls for ambulance and less fires. That's a compliment to the community. It's a compliment to safety. It's a compliment to education of fire alarms, fire extinguishers, various things that the fire department does in an ongoing effort to educate the community. But at the same time, their job is changing, and when their job is changing, we try to figure out how do we, in the most fiscally responsible way, how do we respond accordingly? And so we just want to make some little changes. You know what's critical? Making sure that our level of service is safe and that we can do things in the timely manner. So we put those things on a scale, and you say, how do we incorporate this? We looked at demand response models. We went to an outside third-party entity that would give us some objective feedback, and we looked at how do we deploy our resources. That was very enlightening. The other thing we did is we adopted the international code, which for building municipal code, which probably doesn't mean anything to you unless you're a developer. But if you're a homeowner, it would matter if you're going to tear your home down or you're going to do something totally different with significant change. But for the most part, it's really updating code in a way that says, how do we make things safer? This is about what are we doing in 2021? Are we going to have a vaccine? Are we going to have the end of COVID? Are we going to have some sense of back to normalcy? I don't know. On the other hand, I am actually very optimistic we will. I believe that the village is in a great position to get through this, and I think probably the single biggest challenge is making sure that we have a positive mental attitude. I think that that's important, that we continue to support each other, and we see the glass half full. From a financial perspective, our financial position is stable. It's actually very stable, but impacted. So what did we do? Probably one of the most important things we did is we continued to do our CIP, capital improvement projects. We continued to invest. As I told you before, the roads had less traffic, and we had already budgeted the money for it, and we kept going with some of those projects in an effort to take advantage of it. We still funded our pensions to the obligations that we had agreed to. We have also, for somehow, I guess we, with staff's advice, the board kind of got lucky. The community got lucky in that in 2019, we had more money in our reserves than we probably expected at that point in time. And we moved our fund balance policy up from 30 to 40% to 35 to 45%. And we moved it up, believe it or not, because we were concerned, and this was, if you go back and you listen to the meetings minutes or you watch the tape, there was a concern that staff projected and said, it's been a number of years and we haven't really had a dip. We've had a number of strong years. We should have extra money in case we have a dip. If we have a dip, sales tax takes a significant bath, which is a significant portion of our revenues. So we actually changed our fund balance policy in 2019, which was really quite amazing because we needed it in 2020. So one of the reasons that we're in a more stable position is that we had some extra money, that we actually reduced our fund balance policy this year, mid-year, when I said that we thought the projection was going to be 7.6, we reduced our fund balance policy. So it was a prudent and lucky, in a way, that the timing was such that that happened to just work in our favor. I'd like to say that we had a crystal ball and we planned for that. In a way, staff just said, you're getting out here. We've had, if you watch history, it goes up and down and up and down, and we haven't had a down, and we're kind of due for a down. Let's cushion ourselves a little bit. And it was a different kind of down than we expected, but no one anticipated that. And then probably, from a budget perspective, we've already held 3 public workshops, and now we're going to have the tax levy public hearing on November 17th, and then on December 8th, which is our last meeting of the year, which is when that's the expectation of adopting our tax levy and budget for 2021. Once again, I have to compliment staff for the amount of work that they've done in order to make the budget come together and make it so much easier to read than years in the past. Each year it gets refined, and each year I would tell you it gets a little bit more user-friendly, which is important if a layman, someone in the community wants to take a look and try to say, what does this really mean? But we still have some challenges. It's going to be what's going to happen with volatility based on COVID, what's going to happen with any federal economic relief, whether it's for municipalities or for the state or for the individual, for the person, right? And Jeff referred to some of the PPP payments and some that they had 1,000 people working on, trying to process. All of that actually affects the entire community. So if you look at the revenue, and then you say, who's unemployed? And back to, there was something called the Fair Tax Amendment that did not pass. And so the question is, what will that do to the state budget? Because the state budget had that factored into it. And so we don't know how that's going to affect us. Back to LGDF, Local Government Distributed Funds, I referred to earlier in this presentation. And at $128 per cap, will that stay the same, or will some portion of that change? 2021, we have 2.6 miles of road reconstruction, or $13 million. We also have road resurfacing, and then we have probably, if you live east of Waukegan Road over near Burger King, there's a street called Pleasant Lane that has a parkway that goes right through the middle. The intention is to, as you can see here, put a sidewalk right down the middle. That neighborhood has never had a sidewalk, and that's been a long time coming. That's been talked about for probably, I used to live a block away from there, so at least 20 years ago, that's been discussed. Glenview, water main replacement on Glenview Road from Finkston to Milwaukee. there's another $1 million. These are significant projects that we expect to accomplish. And then we have had some residents that have been extremely interested. Not a lot of residents, but some have been going back and forth on our Pine Street River stabilization improvements. So if you look underneath Glenview Road, we have a little river right there, kind of behind Heinen's, by OLPH. And just north of there on Pine Street is a river stabilization project. And so the object is to make that river flow, if you will. And it's whenever there's a significant rain, that you can see that river fill up significantly. Other projects, this is IDOT oriented, so back to the state. New dedicated right turn lanes on Willow and Finkston. So that's intersection. They've already started to do some things there, but that's really about utilities at this point. They expect to do some things next April. That would take a few months. And then Shermer Road resurfacing south of Willow by IDOT again. And then a couple other significant properties. You know, we talked briefly about Bess and the Hart property. Well, in 2021, these are two significant sites. So you have Signode, which was formerly part of ITW, 56-acre site that there's consideration to redevelop, and then the Pearson site, which is also known as Scott Forsman in the past for some of you, and that's another 19 acres. And at the beginning, we talked about, you know, and in the economic development, what do we want? Should these remain as businesses in a perfect world for our tax base? It is the best option if they remain business. But you watch things happen and you never know what's gonna happen. And so I would encourage you to pay attention, whoever's watching this, to say, what do we want this to be? And redevelopment is a big deal, especially when you have a landlocked community. So one of the things that we heard some voice about was our various commissions. So we have a plan commission today. We have a zoning board of appeals. We have a appearance commission and a historic preservation commission. And historic preservation and appearance are combined today. And there's a consideration to take all of those commissions and combine them into a single commission. The primary reason for doing this is making things work in a more efficient manner for the community itself. You have to say, we had a number of complaints that said, why do I have to go to the Plan Commission and then to the Appearance Commission, and then if there's an exception to the Zoning Board of Appeals, can't we just do this all in one place? So it isn't necessarily to shorten the process, it is to be every bit as thorough, but to do things in a manner that puts things in a single commission that allows a voice to be able to say, wait, I understand the site plan might not be where I think it should be, or it might not be developed the way it should be, but I really also care about the way it looks, and I don't want to have to come back to a different meeting for that. And so each of these, what we did back when the Glen was first developed is we had something called design guidelines. And the design guidelines basically said we intend to have certain types of buildings in this area, and they should probably kind of look like something. And if you look at the Glen Town Center, there's a certain look to that. If you look at different neighborhoods, there's a certain consistent look to that. So we want to create design guidelines that aren't too prescriptive, but have enough of a sense that a developer or a resident, a petitioner could show up and bring things to staff and get things done with more guidance before they come back and get a whimsical answer. So the object is to make things more efficient and then have as much guidance as possible. So we're creating, or the intention is, if this goes through, and I say if, because this is still in the Plan Commission. So the Village Board, staff made a recommendation to the Village Board. The Village Board made a recommendation to take it to the Plan Commission. The Plan Commission gives a public hearing to the process of, do we want to change this? And when they give that to when the Plan Commission listens to what the public has to say, and then the Plan Commission puts their own comments in, and it goes back and forth with the Plan Commission and staff, and they advise, and then it goes back to the Plan Commission a second time, which it's coming up, I think, what's the date it's coming to the Plan Commission? December 15th, it will be back at the Plan Commission again for the second presentation. And if the Plan Commission approves that, then it would come back to the village board to adopt. And if we put this in place, then it would be appointing new commissioners and making sure that design guidelines are supportive of what we're trying to accomplish, assuming this is the way it goes. Kind of a long explanation, but it does make sense. Affordable housing workshop. The intention is to have a workshop that I've mentioned before as part of a strategic goal to evaluate and address options for a structured review by the village board and the community. You know, one of the biggest challenges with affordable housing is making sure that people understand and comprehend what it is. What does it mean, and how do we fit in? On one hand, if you look at the municipal boundaries, just the village itself, we're about 7% of affordable housing. If you look at, you take into, and you say, what is the community? So that's the municipal boundaries of the community. But if you say, look at our school district, i.e. District 34, which takes in an awful lot of unincorporated area. If you manage all of that and you say, you know, our taxpayers that happen to pay village taxes are also paying school taxes, well, if you look at that, we're at about 13% if you take that whole area into account. The state would recommend that we be at about 10%. And so we have to figure out, how do we educate the community and say, does the community understand what this is all about? And if they do, what do they want us to do? We need to at least embrace this and then determine where we want to go from here. We need to, this says, acknowledge and study the jurisdictions. So these other jurisdictions play a significant role in impacting how we serve the community, whether we're serving them with fire or we're serving them with schools or we're serving them, whatever it is. Keep in mind, the village board has a responsibility for zoning. And if you change the zoning of something to make it more dense or less dense, it changes the impact of the school kids, how many kids there are, and that changes your tax bill. So there were 2 referendums in the last year or 2. One was for the Park District, and one was for the school district. And both of them passed about 2-1. They were like 64-30 something, as I recall. And so, you know, on one hand, taxes are a significant issue for our community because we have a significant community. On one hand, I'm really glad that our community does so well. And on the other hand, you do have to pay a significant tax bill. But the goal here is to get community-based data that gives us a sense of what does the community want. And then help us serve you better by, first of all, Smart 911. Go to this application, go online, and put your information in. It is 100% secure that if you put something in here, that I have a heart condition, I have diabetes, I have a cat, I have anything that I have, that if something happened and I went down in a heap and I needed someone to come over and pick me up and carry me out, is there something else they should be looking for? I have a baby in the other room. You can put this in and they will pay attention, right? So when you call up, you say, help, 911, here's my cell number, and they know who you are and where you are. And there's a couple of notes here that say, look for or pay attention to this other issue, whatever it happens to be. And so I encourage you to consider putting that information in. I did it myself, and I've encouraged my family members to do it as well. We have a water portal. What does that mean? We take your water usage from Village Hall. We have meters that measure it every day. It measures not only every day, but it measures it all day long. And if your usage, if you log into this, you can look and see that your usage goes just like this, or it stops because you turned it off, or you thought you turned it off, but it's still using. Then you're like, wait a minute, why is my bill still running? Well, your toilet's running, or your faucet's leaking, or something else. So you should be able to see that. If you go to this portal and you know all your water's off, and you can see it moving, you can at least pay attention. You can either ask a plumber or whatever. You can say, hey, Village, is my water bill screwed up? Why did my water bill go like this? Well, maybe you had a leak. Or maybe we goofed up, but not too often. In reality, we put in all new meters about 3 years ago, I think now, and community-wide, all new water meters. So the technology is there to make it easy for you to use. There's a list of things here that you have that you can keep up, but there's one that's in bright red. Glenview is a weekly newsletter. And when this thing happened in March, April, May, June, when COVID was really high on everyone's radar, we actually did daily newsletters. The object was, how do we get information to any and all people? And yes, the printed newsletter works, and yes, that is the preferred medium. I don't know why. You can take it, carry it, do whatever, but the generation of people coming in, I think they take their phone everywhere, and so they can read that anywhere. But we encourage you and everyone you know to sign up for Glenview. It's really easy, and you can read it or not read it, but at least it's coming at you, and you have a sense of, hey, Connect is here. I can log on and learn about this revitalization, this economic development plan. Hey, there's a place to sign up for my water portal. There's a place to sign up for and get any kind of updates. We also have a variety of other things here. We have Twitter, we have the Village website, we have Facebook, Nextdoor, we have a mobile app. But I would simply encourage you to sign up for Glenview. And this is my village board that has been incredibly supportive, whether it's Kareem Koja, Debbie Carton, Mike Jenny, John Hinkamp, Chuck Gittles, or Mary Cooper. All of them have a voice that makes this community work, and when we have any issue that comes up, they each opine and give you a sense of how and why they feel the way they do about a certain thing. They do their homework, and you don't get a single view. You usually get a variety of perspectives that show that they've actually given things some significant thought, and they're trying to churn over where they want to go with something. So I have a great deal of respect for every one of them, and I appreciate having all of them on our village board. And with that, I don't know if I'm long or short on time, but are there any questions? And there's questions either from in the room or from Mr. Nick Santoro, who's behind the curtain somewhere, and he can look at any questions that might be coming in if there are from Zoom. Are there any questions from here? No. Mr. Santoro.
Yes, I will say if there's anybody watching on Zoom, if you have a question, there is a raise your hand button at the bottom of your screen. If you click that, we will recognize you one at a time. We do have one raised hand, President Patterson, from Brian Barrett.
Good morning, Brian.
Brian, you should be able to unmute yourself at this time.
Hi, James. Thank you for having such an entertaining display. considering the amount of information that you're imparting on us. I was wondering about the off-ramp from 294 over on Milwaukee Avenue by the hotel and by the Grove.
So at this point in time, one meeting ago or 2 meetings ago, jeepers, I don't remember his name. The person that owns the hotel, he donated land that is on the north side it was a Delta hotel and now it's a Renaissance hotel. And he donated the land on the north side of it as well as some land that runs parallel to the tollway. And that donation would allow for an off-ramp as well as it would align so that it would come off towards the Grove entrance. The consideration at this point is purely a consideration. Our next step is to look at what's called a feasibility study that the village board would need to authorize that would give a sense of what are the impacts, what are the trade-offs, what is the cost, and then we look at who would pay the bill. We think that one leg costs about $8 million, and if that was the case, we believe that the tollway would pay for at least half of it, and then we have to say, does that make sense? Is it a complement to our community? And so at this point, we're proceeding along the lines of exploration at this point. And I don't know if that answers your question, Brian, or if you're looking for more. I don't have much more. That's kind of the gist of it.
No, thank you very much.
Okay. Are there any other questions?
President Patterson, there is one more hand up from Amy Claver. Amy, you should be able to unmute yourself.
Who is this?
Amy Claver.
Amy Claver, good morning.
Hi, Amy.
Hi, good morning, and thank you for all the information. I just have a question. I don't understand on the development projects that you mentioned at the Best Hardware site and the Bingston Road, what on hold means. Can you elaborate a little bit about what the status is of those two projects, please?
Probably the best way to say that is at the moment, they're both, there are some lawsuits pending on both of them. And when there's pending litigation, we can't comment. And I apologize for being obtuse, but in the case of pending litigation, there's nothing I can say other than it's pending.
Okay, that clarifies what on hold means. Thank you.
Okay. I probably should have been clear the first time and just said pending litigation. Is there anything else? Mr. Santoro, is there anyone else?
At this point, there's nobody else with their hand raised, President Patterson.
Very good. At this point, I would like to say thank you to Betsy Bear, thank you to the Chamber, thank you for to the Northview Bank and Trust and Glenview Bank and Trust. Okay, thank you, Betsy.
I'm stealing Jim's cool mask. Thank you all for coming, and thank you all for getting on Zoom. We actually had an even larger participation than when we've done it all face-to-face, so I think that's great. I just wanted to give you a couple of reminders of things that are coming up that our residents and businesses can participate in. We're trying to, I liked what Jeff Teleke also opened with responding. And we want to respond with support for our local community, and that includes things like our Takeout Thursday, where we have a fun little competition, and people will be able to post their photos of the takeout things that they pick up for dinners on Thursday, so you'll see something from us soon on that. There are many ways for you to support the business community. We are going to have an online shopping guide, so, maybe start with Glenview, not Amazon, and get your holiday shopping done locally to continue to provide our businesses with the path forward. We will also have some live shopping at the Wagner Tree Farm. Buy your trees locally, too, at the Park District on Saturday, December 5th and Saturday, December 12th. And don't forget the holiday parade. We took a book right out of the 4th of July, we took a page right out of the 4th of July book, and we are going to be doing a reverse parade, a display parade, and we're going to have a really fun time on Lehigh the Saturday after Thanksgiving, November 28th. It's going to start at 4:30, going to be a light parade, and people will be able to come drive past and enjoy, see Santa, and get their gift from Santa as well. I think that's all I've got for right now. Thank you all. Thank you to Jim, to the village staff, to Matt and Jeff and Lynn and Tim and everybody that has continued to make these partnerships happen. Thank you to Wintrust for continuing to support this State of the Village. And thank you to our chamber board. Karen Patterson's here, Craig Solomon's here. I know Chris Falcon, our president, is on Zoom, and I see Kathy Schultz. Those are some of the board members who are sitting here, and Frank Sklavenitis, and our past president, Jerry Deach. So thank you all for being here, and I think we're all set. There we go.